listening to the Getting Salty Experience podcast.
Here we go. Welcome back, Leatherhead Nation. Welcome back to the Getting Salty Experience podcast, the only one that brings the Firehouse kitchen table to you. And we got a big table tonight. We got a lot of guests.
Holy mackerel.
A lot of info. There'll be a lot of laughs, a lot of information. Listen up, and maybe you'll learn something. That's what I'm saying. How's it going, Ruffy?
Awesome.
Yeah, you got a nice little vest on now. What is that new vest? What
is that?
What is that? What is that? Velvet?
Beautiful.
I'm a vest guy. I like the vests, obviously.
Yeah,
I see that.
What kind of vest is that?
I guess you finally turned.
This is Drake. Duck hunting.
What happened, Kubies? Oh, I can't see
heat
him.
on in your house, huh?
Oh, there he is. There he is.
You're worried about me putting the heat on in my house?
I'm going to Verizon first thing tomorrow. You're going
to pick a fight with me because I'm wearing a vest?
I'm just asking about you. I wanted to know if it was corduroy. What is it? Velvet? What is that?
It's a little, it's like a
Gary.
Definitely fleecy. Gary.
Oh, it's nice. It's very nice. You look good.
It's nice. Oh, you know the one just throwing them both out.
I didn't say that.
It was coming.
Oh my
God.
God.
No, it was not. Nope.
Yeah, looking good there, boys.
Yeah, we got a lot of guys in the chat. It's going to be a very informative show.
Where are you working? You working somewhere? I'm going to the Ranger game with the girls with my daughters on the 16th.
Yeah, I got Yankee Stadium. I'm going to be with CC Sabathia this Wednesday at Yankee Stadium. So yeah, it'll be. I don't know what the hell I'm doing there, but it's something.
You're going to be hanging with CC Sabathia?
No, filming him. I don't hang with these people. You know how that goes. It's just
CC's pretty cool, man.
Yeah, no, I worked with him before. He's a great dude. You know, professional. He comes in.
He's a big Star Wars buff. So if you want to get on, he's a big Star Wars guy.
How do you know that?
I watched an interview with him on.
Really?
What do you think I'm just making this shit up?
No, I don't know.
I thought you were just. I thought he was setting me up.
Like he was hanging out with him last week.
What?
Yeah,
no.
Star Wars.
He does. Actually, they were talking about the new comm system they have between pitches and catches, so they don't have to give the signals anymore. The catcher is going to have something on his wrist, and the pitcher will have a speaker in his hat, and that's how they're going to. Yeah, so it could be any voice you want. So they asked CC Sabathia, if you were playing a game, what voice would you have? And he said, I would definitely have Yoda.
Yoda?
I can never understand Yoda.
Yeah, that'd be great though. A slider you will throw. CC, use the fourth. Use the force.
Oh my God!
So that's how I know. He said he was a big Star Wars fan.
That's awesome.
We'll ask him about it, Pete. Yeah,
I definitely will, man.
I didn't realize that's what they were doing. Why? Because
not only are they going to get a speaker, the second baseman's going to have a speaker, and the center fielder, so they know what pitch is going to get.
And there he is.
That was great, Kev. Thank you for joining us tonight here at the Getting Salty Experience podcast. He's back. He's back. You got a lot of puppets back.
I see it coming.
I can't.
I don't even have anybody yell at. My wife and kids aren't even home. I can't yell at anybody. I'm going to yell at.
No. And you reset everything, huh? You know, your routers and
maybe I'll go and just kick the dog right in the ass.
I had Optimum for about I had Altice for about 3 days before I got him kicked right out of my house. Get this shit out of here.
Yeah.
Out. But there you go.
All right, listen, let's get on it. We got an important show tonight. Enough of the shenanigans going on.
Yeah, let's move through paying the bills, and then after we pay the bills, we'll get all of our many esteemed guests on. All right. So as you guys know, we are sponsored by New Jersey Fire Equipment. So, ladies and gentlemen, New Jersey Fire Equipment. Established in 1930 and under the current ownership since 1987, the New Jersey Fire Equipment Company handles a complete line of fire department equipment and supplies. Headquartered in Greenbrook, the company operates full 3M Scott service facilities in Ridgefield Park and Toms River, staffed by 10 fully authorized Scott certified technicians with a fleet of 6 fully equipped service vans. All New Jersey fire technicians and sales representatives are active or retired firefighters, officers or chief officers, career and volunteer. They understand the business and the importance of their work. New Jersey Fire has represented Scott since Earl Scott entered the SCBA business at the end of World War II. Among other leading manufacturers represented by New Jersey Fire are Globe and Firedex Turnout Gear, Mercedes Hose, Task Force Tips and Akron Brass, Hygenol, Fire Hooks, Arctic Compressors, MSA Carnes Helmets, ChemGuard Foam, Alkalite and Duo Safety Ladders, BA Face Shield Protectors, Truckman's Choice Saws, Grove's Gear Racks and Washer Dryers, Supervac Fans, RPI, Streamlight, and many others. A New Jersey incorporated and based company, sales and service are limited to the state of New Jersey. Find us now at www.njfe.com. That's www.njfe.com. Oh,
there he is. Beautiful, John.
Nice,
my boy Jimmy Jams. James owns a company. Jimmy Jams.
Yeah, thanks a lot to NJFE. We really appreciate you guys. Definitely an esteemed sponsor, but also, guys, you know the deal. GettingSaltyApparel.com. That's how we pay the bills around here. You like your tumblers, your mugs, your hats, your T-shirts. Ooh, look at that mug. Really nice there, Lou. Wow, right on cue. So if you guys want to support the show, hit us up at gettingsaltyapparel.com. And also tonight, if you're on the interwebs here watching live, or if you're not actually, you guys can super chat us whenever you're watching the show on YouTube. If you want to just, throw us a couple of shekels, because you guys are our number one sponsors, our number one syndicators. We rely on you to keep this ball rolling. So, Have no fear. Hit us up in the super chat if you can. If not, cool. No worries. We love you anyway. And that is that.
Yeah, if you want to throw a couple of dollars towards my new internet, please feel free. All right, Piggy, let's bring him in.
All right, everybody.
We got a gaggle of them.
I'm going to bring everybody in, and then we'll introduce them once we bring them all in. So here we go.
First, we'll do the pledge so Susie don't scream.
Right. Once we get everybody in, right? Yeah.
Yeah,
he does that every week. Doesn't he do that every week?
We're going to do the pledge, Susie. All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, our esteemed guest for this evening.
Oh, here he is. Look at this guy.
All right. Let's bring him
Hey,
all
look, it wasn't he Arnold Schwarzenegger in the Jewinator? Wasn't that him, bro?
Captain Cobra. I am after you, Kevin.
Oh, that didn't take long.
And I brought my scissors with me.
All right. This guy's a nut. All right. Pete, let's do a patriotic thing before the Terminator.
Before we introduce everyone?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
All right. Everybody, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to get to our guests in a moment, but first we have to do our patriotic duty. Ladies and gentlemen, the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Boom.
All right, I always wanted to say this. Welcome our esteemed guests. I always wanted to say that. We got a whole bunch of esteemed guests on tonight.
It's like the Brady.
First, we'll start left to right. Let's go with Ron Zoni. You know him in the chat, the man, the 107 myth, Ron Zoni. Welcome, Ronnie.
Hey, welcome, Ronnie.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Great to be here tonight. Thank you very much.
Give us a little background on your mental health skills.
Yeah, when I retired from the fire department, I got into the peer counseling game, and I would participate regularly, weekly, for about 5 years in a row. I'd be out and about 3 days a week minimum, and then if we ever got a call out or something, it would be on top of that. And primarily, our message as peers is to go to firehouses and just walk in the door. We walk like a duck, we quack like a duck, so we know the nomenclature of the job. And, you walk in and someone's like, oh, you told me at Proby School, we got on the job together. So it's kind of instant credibility. And, we pitch them on what this counseling services can do for them. And we leave our business cards. Usually on the way out, someone will approach us. And then my job is to point them in the direction of when he was active, Frank Lito, and the gang at CSU. So that's basically my end of the mental health game. And I'm a little mental, and I need some help.
That always helps,
we all? Yes.
Can't relate.
Our next guest is Captain Frank Lito. Cap, tell us about yourself.
Thanks, Kevin. And it is great to be on the show. Frank Lito, a retired captain, 38 years at FDNY. The last 20 years working as the deputy director of the counseling service unit. Also worked closally with the International Association of Firefighters, disasters around the country that we supported. After 9/11, we got so much support from around the country, around the world. It was always our commitment. If things happened anywhere around the country, that we would, if they called us, we would help. And FDNY did that, and it continues to do that.
Excellent day. All right, my life, Nancy Carbone. We love her. We met her right after 9/11. Yeah, we know her a long time.
Long time.
A little spiel about yourself and the Friends of Firefighters is what you represent.
The spiel about myself is short. I'm a mom, and after 9/11, I thought I would help out some of the houses. And after a couple of months, there was a trust built, and firefighters asked if I would start a counseling service outside of the job. I didn't know about CSU at the time, Frank, so there's no offense for us starting it, but I'm glad we did, because what we found is that some firefighters didn't want to go to the job. They didn't want it. They felt it would be on their records, perception or not. If they feel that, that might prohibit their taking advantage of the services. So we run a nonprofit outside of the department for FDNY members, active and retired, and their families.
And that is friendsofFirefighters.org, right?
Friends of Firefighters.
Right, but you guys were offering a lot of the services other than, and including counseling, correct?
Yeah. We have a lot of stuff. We have financial guidance, acupuncture. We have events. We have educational seminars. Just a plethora of services that you could use. And coming there, sometimes guys just come for a cup of coffee because, especially the retirees, they go back to their houses and they don't necessarily know the newer guys that are in there. So they have a place to go and gather. So it's been a real boon for them, but also for the families to have services that are unlimited. They're free. We never charge for any of our services. And I think that that's gone a long way because they don't go through insurance or anything. There's no trail. So it's been successful.
You were doing that a couple of months, a couple of weeks after 9/11. I remember that. I mean, we needed gloves. You got us gloves. You need, whatever we needed. You were doing all that stuff. That's a long time.
Yeah, well, at that time it was a little easier because there were a lot of people that were very focused on helping the firefighters, and so it was easy early on to get those things. I didn't get to hazmat for about 4 weeks. Sorry, guys, you were behind the curve. I was in some Brooklyn houses and a couple of Bronx houses initially. A dear friend that was a lieutenant up in the Bronx, and he survived. And so this is how it started. I said, "How can I help?" And he said, "Go to your local house and see how you can help them." And it just exploded from there. So it's been an honor. It's been an honor.
Yeah, you did a great job, Nancy. Really.
Yeah.
Never alone. So please, it's not me. And who's this
all right.
character?
This guy, I'm gonna get to him. I knew I was going to get to him. You guys know him. Yeah. All right, Mikey. He might.
Yes, I'm Nancy's chauffeur, so we have to leave in about an hour. But other than that, yes.
All right. Why are you wearing sunglasses at night?
Yeah, go ahead, Kevin. I'm sorry.
Why are you wearing sunglasses at night?
You know what? I just like cheap sunglasses, ZZ Top, that kind of stuff. So I'll give you a little.
Maybe you were doing some welding or something back there. I don't know what the hell you're doing.
No, Jews don't do blue collar work.
They run the job.
They run the
job.
I thought maybe you were supervising some thing back there.
I can barely supervise myself. Okay,
Nancy, just go like this.
So let me just say this.
All right.
I'll give you a brief background. 50 engine in 77, went across the floor in about 81 to 19 truck. Just luck of the draw. I read a book by some lady called Grit. I just happened to be in the right spot at the right time. Duckenworth is her name. Great book to read if you want to know about how to get ahead in life. And it's not just being intelligent, it's luck, timing, and grit, determination. And that's what it's all about with me over the last 25, 30 years of my career. I've been through a lot of ups and downs. And if I can come on a show, I'm living proof. If you look for help, get the help, and make it work for you. You don't have to follow it exactly, the rules, but just have a clear path. And there's a brighter future out there for all of us who have either PTSD or a mental disorder of some type. So, Frank, Ron, Nancy, all you guys on the screens, listen, it's a great endeavor. I always believed in playing it forward, giving back what I can, and I try my best. So I hope everything goes well tonight for all of us.
Sure.
And pay attention, guys.
Is this
Yes,
is this the Mike Milner after you received help, or is this the before you received help? I just want to know where we're at right now.
It was a long and winding road.
It is. I didn't want to know what it looked like before, but if this is what it looks like now, all right, Mike.
Thank God for guardrails.
Thank you, yeah. And martinis, but that's another story.
All right, Captain Lito, give me a little perspective on when we first came on the job. We didn't even know there was a counseling unit. So when did the counseling unit actually come about? When was it?
Right. So, I mean, the counseling, it actually was there in the early 60s. Yeah, we didn't know about it. When did you come on, Kevin?
95.
Okay. I came on in 83. We had no clue about the counseling unit. And for the most part, it was, at that point, it was a substance abuse place where firefighters were helping other firefighters that had a substance abuse problem. So early on, it was like AA. It was at headquarters. When you had a guy that could no longer function, you would just kind of throw him there. And then in the early 80s, a guy by the name of Malachi Corrigan came on and was the director of the counseling unit, and he made it more professional. When we came on, Kevin, for the most part, we would watch our coworkers. We would help them and we would support them, and we would watch them drink themselves to death, right? Or we would watch them lose their families, lose financial support, lose their health, and eventually, die of their diseases. All the time, we were helping them. We were working for them. We were covering for them. That's been a big change in the fire service. And, a lot of what 9/11 did was made mental health, us aware of mental health, because nobody could hide behind what they were experiencing after 9/11. We were all having difficulty. So it kind of pulled the rug away from us and exposed what we were experiencing. So after 9/11, the counseling unit exploded, where we were beforehand, we had 12 employees. Then we grew to about 90 employees, a peer support program, and 5 or 6 different locations. Places like Friends of the Firefighters, they grew up. They grew as well, support our members. Like Nancy said, some members did not want to go within in the fire department, and that's fine as long as there's a place for them to get help.
Right. You know what it took to Nancy's point that not only were guys a little hesitant at first to go because they didn't want a job tonight.
We're losing Kubi's there.
I was going to say he's covering his mouth.
Yeah,
he's unless he's a ventriloquist.
Here, yeah, he's in, he's out, he's in, he's out.
Am I back? Am I back?
You're back now. We lost you. Guys were hesitant. Oh man,
He's out.
It's the mice. No, Coops, no.
Oh,
Am I back?
Not the show.
Mental health show.
Not the show.
Am I back?
Yeah, now you're back. Oh, come
Wait
on.
a minute. We just said humor. We just said humor. Did we not say humor? All right, we did.
I did.
So to Nancy's point, what I wanted to say was maybe guys didn't want to be seen by other firefighters at the counseling unit. So that's why Friends of Firefighters was an place to go.
Right. And so the stigma is the biggest obstacle for people to get help. They're fearful of what people think of them. They're fearful of how they will, also appear themselves. So stigma really stops people from getting the help that they need. Yeah. I mean, what we experience in this job is incredible, right? What we go through, like when the data is clear. Firefighters suffer from higher rates of PTSD, substance abuse, depression, complicated grief, anxiety. Nobody told us that when we came on the job. Did they say, this is what you might experience? No, they just threw you out in the field, and all of a sudden you started experiencing these things, and you didn't know where to go to get help. You didn't know what you were experiencing because nobody told you about it.
I just, I have to ask, if everyone is nervous that and this can go to any one of you guys, maybe even Nancy, because you did mention something about it prior, but on the job, are there any kind of punitive damages on the job or some sort of official damage that would happen if you did mention that you have some sort of an issue? Because I want everyone to know what their perceived consequences are versus what the real consequences are, or is it more of a cultural issue within the fire service? Do you guys think that they were getting this sort of stigmatized issue with mental health?
I think it's a male thing too, and it's an unknown. I do think that it's more difficult for men to say, "Oh, I need help with something," and then you couple that with a rescue worker. Well, they rescue other people.
Definitely a
right?
pride
So
thing. Definitely,
it's really difficult.
Thing.
Yeah, it's that, but it's also fear of the unknown. And some guys don't want to unpack what they think is going to go back to childbirth and then go through their entire lives.
That's true too.
They'd rather carry it around. So after 9/11, when we start talking about 9/11, well, the guys in the Bronx wanted to talk about Happy Land because they've been swallowing that for quite a while.
Wow.
And that was a really difficult job that they to this day are haunted by. So, to your question, I do think it's more of a male thing. I think it's very difficult to say, I need help with this, but it's just 10 times harder for a first responder.
Yeah, especially a male.
Also,
go ahead, Ronzoni.
The type of,
let Coops finish. The stigma is there because we're all A-type personality people. We show up, we're fixing things, in nanoseconds. We're making decisions. We're coming up with, more than likely, we got the right answer. So when we have to ask for someone to help us, it's almost like a defeat to us. We feel defeated by that. And prior to my time getting on a job, I got on in '88. The stigma was, if you can't cut it, take up, go somewhere else. If you don't have what it takes, and that stigma is gone since 9/11. It's been pushed under the rug for sure.
To Nancy's point, and particularly in males, I mean, we were taught not to show our emotions, right? What did our fathers tell us when we were kids? I'll give you something to cry about, right?
Yeah, or don't cry, right?
So you were taught to stuff your emotions, and that has to come out someplace. So in a firehouse, it came out as anger. It came out. You put the bottle on the table and you drank it because so it came out in a lot of different ways, a lot of unhealthy ways.
Right. Especially, this job too is a very macho job, so it's even tougher around a whole bunch of macho guys. Not only being male, but being in this macho setting of, like Ron said.
Sure. Oh, we lost him again.
We're all fixers.
The bravado was big on this job because. Go ahead. Sorry, guys.
No, go ahead, Ronzoni.
Yeah, Mike. Well, it's just common that the bravado is there. We're doing, extraordinary things by ordinary people. We go from 0 to 100. And you've heard the saying many times. Even when we do everything right, we still lose people. So, I speak from firsthand experience with the counseling unit. I used it when, I was going through a divorce. I used it. My twin brother had a really bad drinking problem when I was still drinking. I didn't know how to deal with any of those things. And there's absolutely no shame in my game. I'll tell you straight up, I used the counseling service for my benefit. And the other way to look at this, it's just another tool in our toolbox. When we pitch firehouses to talk about, if you go to an orthopedic doctor to get your shoulder looked at, if you got a stomach problem, you go to a gastro guy. If something's bothering you up here, and it's very important that we're all 100% fit for duty and ready to do our jobs. if you can't get your mind right, you can't do your job on a fire ground. And it's important to use whatever assets are available to you. It's very important.
Right. How much of a impact, whether it be a detriment or a good thing, do you think the kitchen table was in the firehouse?
Mikey, why don't you take that one? The kitchen table.
Oh boy, it could go either way. It's like the weather. Everyone brings their problems to the kitchen table over a coffee, and God forbid if you brought in Dunkin' Donuts, you were vilified for the rest of the tour. You had to bring in real crumb cake, real jelly donuts from the bakery, so that could start a problem in itself. I always gravitated to one or two people. Like for me, one of the guys I used to talk to a lot when I got to Rescue 4, and I was there prior to Harry Ford getting there, was Harry Ford. I mean, he would talk to you, and he talked to you like a father. I mean, he was a nut job, don't get me wrong. I could tell you tons of stories. Hopefully I could tell a few tonight. But he was the guy to talk to. And if he thought you were a certain word, he'd go, Mike, you're an asshole. And once you heard that from Harry, you knew that I got to go look in the mirror and maybe go talk to somebody and correct my behavior. And then there were other guys who were when I got to 50 and 19, most of these guys were Korean and Vietnam War veterans. They had a totally different slant on it. There was no hugging and kissing. Go down to the pit, which we had a pit in those days, unofficially, and you went downstairs, you had a beer, you had a scotch, and that was it. Done door. And the tour was over, you went home, and you did it again. I mean, guys had scars from fighting fires and whatever, and that was just their mindset. And when I had met Frank the other day for dinner, I had tried to get out on Section 8 prior to 9/11. And it just wasn't in the cards yet because I had just had a big problem with Father's Day, and I still do. But there's a silver lining with 9/11. With all the deaths still to this day, the counseling unit, the fact that the city acknowledged that having a mental disorder is as bad as breaking your back or having second and third degree burns, they took it seriously. And thank God they did. I think I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for the support of FDNY, CSU, and my own therapies I had gotten over the years. So nowadays, you can walk in with Ron or Frank, whoever's on the teams. I've done it a few times with a few gentlemen. And you're appreciated. They want to talk to you. And as Frank said earlier, there's no stigma anymore. You can walk in there, and you can leave for 2 weeks, and when you come back, hey, Mike, what's going on? Like nothing happened. It's not a gun squad like in the cops. They treat you with respect, and they're there to make you get better.
Kev, I have a quick question. Where's the line? If you join the FDNY, you join the fire department, first responder, whatever it is, a cop, whatever it is that you're doing, you're a first responder. The first day that if you sign up for something, right, at some point, you're going to see bad things, right? So where's the line where you tell somebody to toughen up a little bit? You're going to see a lot more of this stuff for 25 years or 38 years, like the captain or what. So where's the line where, like, if you feel that way right out of the box, then this job's not for you, right? Can you do 20 years like this? Or like what I'm just saying, I'm just trying to be a devil's advocate because you have to be tough somewhat, right? Mentally tough. How do you get mentally tough? By, having your balls broke or having to suck it up a little bit, for lack of a better term. But how do you get that? Where's the balance from that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we're trying to make the job less tough. I mean, I think it's two different things. I mean, you have to be resilient and tough to do this work. And some people are not cut out for it, Lou. And some of those people we held on for 20 years, and they went to slow firehouses. They hid. That's not what we're talking about. So we have to do a better screening job not to hire those people, number one. And when those people if we find out that they're not good, we got to get rid of them. So we're not talking about that. We're talking about mental health issues that occur because of the work
over time
and how it affects you. And and a lot of our men and women, it really starts to hit home after they retire because of what Kevin was talking about. The kitchen table is an unbelievable place. I mean, if you can bottle what's there, you'd be a billionaire. I mean, it keeps us healthy. It keeps us from killing ourselves in many
Brutal
cases.
honesty.
Is
Brutal
that
honesty.
tremendous support that you get. But when you retire, that's all gone. Nobody wants to hear your stories. Your neighbor doesn't want to hear your stories.
Your wife doesn't want to hear them.
Your wife certainly doesn't want to hear your stories. But those stories are healing. When you get together with any of us, within 5 minutes, we're talking about 9/11 because we need to. That's what the kitchen table does. But without that and without support, sometimes you need a little help, and that's what a peer counselor can do. That's what a professional counselor can do.
Ron Zoni, what do you think to that same thing? Like
Yeah,
what I'm talking about.
Well, I was, as you were talking, Lou, it was bouncing off in my head, and I don't know if you can really draw a line because somebody's a little more tolerant to things than others, and everything that we experience is cumulative. There's a saying that I write, and I Lord, help my mind forget what my eyes have seen. You do 20, 25 years, and I only did 17 years on a job. But I have my stories just like everybody else, and you go from 0 to 100. You see stuff that normal people don't see, and that the way we off gas is to come back to that kitchen table. You've heard the term gallows humor. Make light of a bad situation. That talking about it definitely helps you to dump it, and you got to keep an eye on the guys in the kitchen who are not involved in those conversations, who are isolating themselves, and there's certain things that, if let's face it, we all live in the same firehouse. We sleep under the same roof. The guys that are in your groups, you know everything about them, aside from firehouse life, their home life and everything. So
that is crazy, right?
When something's eating at somebody, you're going to know it. I mean, I got a story from the Kevin Kane fire, and, a fella from my company, he didn't go for counseling, and for whatever his reasons are. Guy was an excellent fireman. I asked him a question because I came in the next morning, and this is his exact quote. I says, what was going on the roof? Because the 107 had operated in Queens at a multiple alarm. They came back to the firehouse. The relocator was there. I searched the apartment. The room that Kevin Kane was in, I searched it 2 days before that fire. They turned out of our bunk room. 107 came back there on R&R. They asked the dispatcher to go because we were very familiar with that building. And we knew something was going to happen over there. And they denied him. The boss took the company and went anyway. 107 was on the roof. They had the pipe. This guy had the hook over the parapet, telling him, grab the hook, I'll pull you out of the window, which he wouldn't have been able to do anyway because Kevin Kane was a big guy. His exact words to me, the only thing that wasn't burning on him was his teeth.
Oh, my God.
That was his exact words to me. And that guy suppressed that, never went for help, not to my knowledge anyway. And for a couple of years, he would wake up in the bunk room with nightmares, seeing Kevin Kane in the corner on fire.
Ron.
So that's just go ahead. Yeah.
What's up? That's such a troubling story. And I can't help but ask, right? Or think, how much of this responsibility then falls on leadership? And I'm not talking about like in a requirement kind of way, like, well, you got your pen and pad out. Well, it's my monthly mental health check. You okay? Good. Are you okay? Good. Yeah. You? No, go to CSU. I'm talking about in a very honest, in a very, in a kind of way that maybe some guys don't know how to step up. You know what I'm saying? Even if they are leaders, like how much responsibility do you think that falls on leadership to come in and help guys?
From my point of view, this guy showed no signs of any type of distress, So that'd be difficult for a company opposite. That you'll be able to tell when someone's having a hard time, and I'm sure the scuttlebutt around the firehouse will be evident as well. And then, as a company officer, your responsibility would be to try to have an intervention with this fellow, try to sit down and talk with him, and just ask him a couple of questions. But I think maybe Frank could take that a little bit. He's well more versed than I am, and he's also a rank ahead of me. What do you think about that, Frank?
Well, what I do know is that New York City firefighters have a lot of support. But there are 33,000 other departments around the country. And most of those departments don't have programs. And most of those departments don't have mental health education. And most of those departments don't have anywhere to turn when they have a problem. And it doesn't have to be 9/11. It could be, a pediatric death. It could be a terrible car accident, your first misformed body that you see, when we come on this job. And so, and there are, that's happening tonight, someplace in this country where a guy is getting back or a woman's getting back to the station with nowhere to turn, with the officers having no education or support in the area as well. So, if we get anything done tonight besides have a really good time and be with really good people, is to, let those other departments know, no matter how small they are, that they should have education and a program. They can have 10 people in their department. There is no excuse at this point not to have a program for mental health because of what we go through.
Can I add to Frank's comments?
Go ahead, Mike.
I'll go from the volley perspective also. Usually in a lot of big departments and middle-sized departments, they have some kind of CSU services available. But when you're a volunteer, especially in a small department out in the rural parts of our country, you may go to a call once a month, and that once a month may be an impaled guy in a hay baler, or a guy got a pitchfork in his back somehow, or a very bad car accident. And all you do really, you go back to the station, you put your gear on the rack, and you go home. Now, you may not be seen for months. And that, to me, is a very serious problem, because you're not going to see this guy or this girl for a month. And you're assuming that maybe it's the fire chief or one of his drinking buddies. Hey, everything is cool. It may not be cool. And for 2 months or a month, this person may be stewing and so upset about what's going on, and they have nowhere to turn, like you said, Frank. So I'm really would like to really focus on all the volunteers watching tonight on this program, that they're the ones that are falling through the cracks because they don't have the tax base to do it.
They don't have the kitchen table either, really.
Right.
I mean, they do, but they don't.
Yeah.
Louis, that's like Frank alluded to, Rod alluded to. The kitchen table is a lifesaver. Like I said, volleys go in, put their gear on the rack, and they go home. And they're not getting the support that they need. So hopefully tonight, if there's volleys watching, they'll talk to the chief or their fire commissioners and say, hey, guys, we got to find some money. Or at least reach out to the county they live in, and maybe there's a free service similar to what Nancy does for the firefighters that they can reach out to get the help they need.
Nice. Yeah,
to add to that, as far as the volleys, right after we lost this, the last guy in 134 truck, I got a lot of friends that are over there in Islip, and they had asked if I would come over and pitch the firehouse. And, the day they asked me was my daughter's, the shower, the party before the wedding, the rehearsal dinner. That was the night he needed me. And I had, Mike, unbeknownst to you, I did give your name up and let him know that we got a guy, who's a volley. He was a volley. He's from the job, and then I don't know how they handled it, but I know they did speak of it. And, I know some of the departments are trying, but you made a good statement there, Mike, and hopefully someone, it fell on some open ears and we can get that done, which is what we're trying to do here tonight.
I wanted to ask Nancy, what has been your experience if guys didn't go to the job counseling unit? What has the main way people reach out to you, and just give us a little background on how that works with you too.
Initially, they would actually follow me out to the apparatus floor and start to talk to me, before we had a full staff and everything. Or they would call my cell phone, and I was just a conduit to services. I was not the counselor. But initially, I would sit as a friend and listen to them. And I found it was starting to get me into a headspace that was not healthy for me. I'm not trained to do this stuff. So I made sure that we hired the right people. But to Michael's point, and by the way, Michael, you're not my chauffeur. I drive my own car. I just want to say that. It's really important.
Good for you.
Because I'm a little bit of a motorhead and nobody drives me.
Whoa,
but what Michael said, yeah. But what Michael said is really important. And we're getting calls from around the country. And in fact, we're starting a pilot program in Biloxi, Mississippi, because they see the need and they didn't have the tools to put it together. So, I did take a lot. Frank is a quiet guy, but Frank really did, for me, he was a bit of a model because he was the one guy that would, I just watched him, how he handled things. And the trust is essential. So once you have trust, then they're willing to go into a vulnerable space. But that's a hard place for a firefighter to go, a vulnerable space. And what I'm finding, and guys tell me if I'm wrong, but you're like a Mayday mentality, and I think that's extended to mental health. So when guys call, it's usually like, holy shit, this is really like far out from the event.
It's the last second before.
It's the last second. And what has me a little bit freaked out, up until now, we had a wait list. We never had a wait list before. So I don't know if CSU is experiencing this, but we're experiencing off the charts. We had a 51% increase last year, and it's already doubled so far this year. And we're only 4 months in. So there's a lot. I don't know whether we could chalk it up to the education, the climate, COVID. COVID really did a number on a lot of people and a lot of families. And maybe it's a little easier to come in because of those issues and then start to discuss the issues about the job. But you're asking males to be rescue workers, to be vulnerable, to have trust. And that takes time to build. So I don't know if I answered your question. Okay.
No, it's good. I appreciate it. No, it's good.
No, that was a great answer. I just can't help but think that, it's a balance between cultural issues, we are definitely hitting the male thing, of course, and also structural issues in the department. But have any of you guys seen improvements with all the new programs going on, or at least some of the mental awareness going on?
Go ahead, Cap.
Yeah, so the IFF came to us right after, let's say probably in 2004. And we had developed a peer support training program, and they, with them and other departments from around the country, we developed the program that the IFF has now. It's a 2-day program. It is their hottest program that they've ever had, as far as requests from around the country. They're doing about 150 trainings a year, all around the country. So the awareness is there. When I first started talking about nationally about mental health at a conference, there'd be 5 people in the room. I'm not kidding. I'd be in a room and there'd be 5 people in there. Now, it usually is the busiest of all in all the conferences. You usually can't get a seat at these conferences now for a mental health, because now you were afraid to walk in 20 years ago. Now everybody knows.
Now you're afraid not to walk in.
Now you're afraid not to walk in. It's true. And it's okay to walk in.
Yeah.
It's okay to walk in. Now we can talk about, that we have depression or PTSD. Somebody made a point, I think it was Nancy, about the Mayday mentality.
Yes, perfect.
And we talked about this the other night. What's the average between the distance between the trauma and the diagnosis of PTSD is 10 years.
Oh my goodness.
10 years. So you have the line of duty death, and then the diagnosis doesn't happen for 10 years later. What happens in between is you've lost your family, you've drank yourself to sickness, you're now debilitated where you no longer can work. Usually the last thing that goes is you can work, and then you call Nancy, then you call Ron, then you call me, because that's the Mayday.
Or you start a podcast.
Meanwhile,
at least the podcast helps more people, though.
Right. So if we could interrupt that cycle, if we can interrupt that cycle after 6 months, think about all the people that we could save.
Wow.
Right. So
that's
right, Mike.
staggering.
I was going to add to Frank, just from my experience, I think there was point two about the delayed in diagnosing PTSD. In between those times, there's a lot of other little issues that come up, other fires, other line of duty deaths, and what happens. And this is a serious problem. I don't know if this is what Frank has addressed yet. He might have. There's a lot of careers that suffered, where lieutenants, chiefs left early because no officer wants to have a line of duty on his watch. I know a couple of chiefs. One lieutenant from Rescue 4, he had the Pete McLaughlin fire. I just was out for lunch with him the other day, and he's still trying to figure it out, what really happened. So not only does it affect that one person, let's look at it that it affects a broader amount of people. And if there's the chief there or the lieutenant or the captain's involved, it's scary. And, I wish it was less time to find out these issues with PTSD. It probably took me more than 10 years myself because I was lost.
Right. And think about your family, think about your kids, think about, the extended family. All those people are impacted by that.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the other thing, Mike, that you mentioned, like we're talking about line of duty deaths. Most firefighters, there's 1 million firefighters out there. Most firefighters will not experience a line of duty death in their career. And, that's unbelievable to the the 7 of us that are here, because that it's more routine, unfortunately, in New York.
Yes.
But when it does happen in another part of the country, nobody there has ever experienced it before, so they don't even know how to handle it.
Right.
So like all the institutional knowledge is gone. We have, unbelievable institutional knowledge around line of duty deaths because we have dealt with so many in our careers.
Unfortunately, we haven't figured out.
But when you pick up the paper tomorrow and some fire department had a line of duty death, I guarantee it was the first one in 40 years.
Right. Mm-hmm. You know what I wanted to talk about, Cap? Just it stuck to me all this time. In the pre-show, we were talking about, guys getting on the job, guys and girls getting on the job, and right now we're talking about getting PTSD or having to seek the counseling unit because of stuff you've seen on the job, as you do your career. You talked about veterans, like a lot. The FDNY really started not too long ago. You get points now for being a vet. I'm sure that's around the country. So those are the guys who generally, they're on, they're getting on the job. So, and now you have a guy who maybe was, a lot of those guys were overseas and taking care of stuff, overseas, and they have that baggage already. And now to come onto our job, and maybe something triggers that to come back out. And that was something I never thought about until you mentioned that, in the pre-show. Yeah,
I mean, I think, first of all, I love the programs that give veterans the opportunity to get into civil service, become New York City firefighters, become Boston firefighters, Chicago. That's something that we have to keep in place and even probably make better, have more opportunities. But we also need to have screening tools to protect them and protect the department. We don't want somebody that come in with severe PTSD onto this job and then experience what they're going to experience in 20 or 25 years to completely debilitate him or her. So if they have severe PTSD, to get treatment for that PTSD, to be to recover from that PTSD before they're exposed to our job. So not to throw them to the wayside, to identify them, get them to support, and then get them on the job. Not the other way around. Come on the job, then get them help, because at that point you may have scarred them too far.
Cap or anyone really. One thing that has occurred to me is that somewhere where this should probably start, the help for this is probably the fire academy. Is that a silly thought?
No, if I may.
Go
Part
ahead.
of the peer counseling teams that we have over the last bunch of years, we visit every single probationary fire class while they're in the academy toward the end of their tenure there, and we tell them what's afforded to them and how they can go about accessing it. We also go to the dispatcher offices. We visited all boroughs, all dispatcher offices. You want to talk about not so much a forgotten bunch, but those guys, they're fielding all that stuff firsthand, and they're on the radio when the Maydays are coming through. So they're exposed. They're not crawling down a hallway, but they're getting hit with a lot of stuff on that radio, man. And we make sure that we cover all our bases. We try to, because we want to try to get some things in place before they actually get out into the field, so they have an idea of what's available and what could help them. We go to firehouses and we make sure everybody knows, we're not only there for the firefighter, immediate family. We even see children, underage children. CSU will do an intake on them, look at what's troubling them, and through their own insurance, get them to a place where they can be helped. But if I'm not correct, Frank, correct me, but non-minor children can be seen by our clinicians.
Right. Yeah, they can be, but so we usually refer them out. But it's something that Ron said that just sparked something, and it kind of off topic, Pete. So I'm not going to answer your question directly.
Go for it, man.
He talked about dispatchers, and dispatchers in all over the country are a group that does not get the support that they need. We were in Aurora, Colorado after the theater shooting. You remember the theater shooting in Aurora, Colorado?
Sure.
So we were called there to support the Aurora Fire Department. And we were there for a few days, and hearing about the calls that came in from the theater. The people were in the theater making phone calls to 911. The dispatchers were handling those calls, dispatching police and fire. I said, "Can we go see the dispatchers?" And they were a little out of town. And we drove over, had a couple of our peer counselors with us and one of our clinicians. We walked into the dispatch station, and they all just started to cry.
Oh, my goodness.
The grown men and women just bawling, crying, because we came, just because somebody thought about them. And the trauma that they had experienced. We know what happens at the end of a call. We see what happens. And sometimes it's not good, but we have some closure. These men and women do not. Somebody called them on the phone. I'm being shot at. The phone hangs up, and they have no clue what happened to that person. So another thing that we should, anyone out there that's listening, give your dispatchers a call, particularly after a tough run, a tough call. Give them a call and check in on them. They'll appreciate it.
If I can, Frank, that's a really good point. And about 6 or 7 years ago, we expanded our services to include the dispatchers for that very reason.
Excellent. Wow. That's excellent. I'm wondering if Coobs is doing okay, or do you have PTSD because of your internet?
Dude, I'm actually sitting right next to the router. I got to tell you.
You look like you're laying down, though, actually.
It does look like that.
I'm sitting on a recliner.
Poor Coobs. I know how you feel, brother.
I just ran from room to room to room. I'm like, well, it doesn't even work on your phone.
I've never done that. I've never done that before.
Nah.
Maybe in a hotel room somewhere.
In my actions, you guys talked about, I want not only get the message out to the guys not to be afraid to get help and make, how emphasize it's okay to get help. I also want to emphasize to the rest of the guys in the firehouse to be more aware to, I think it was Ron Zoni who said, if you
I know where he's going.
We're just getting to a good point. He was just
he was going to say basically, you know that you live with the guys, right? A lot of guys, over the years, you know the guy, right? You know
Okay.
his personality, you know how he's going to be, you know, when you see him every 24, and when you see something that ain't right, that's what you were saying, Ronzoni, right? I mean, feeling that you're going to know. So it's, if you feel like it's not, you know, something is really happening with this guy or girl, then it might be your duty to, you know, push that somewhere, maybe to the boss or, you know, whatever.
Sure. Since I'd like to discuss something that the job did quite a few years ago. We did a suicide awareness program. I think it's important to talk about this. It'll take a couple of minutes. You know, and by the way, when I became a peer counselor, what I did was I followed two peers that were in the game. I watched their pitch. I got pointers from them, and then sooner or later you go out on your own and you get your own shtick and your own pitch out, and then you're able to do it. You know, yeah. But suicide awareness campaign, the job made a push. This is probably close to 10 years ago, Frank, maybe. So there was an uptick in ideations of suicide. What is that? Someone says, I think I want to kill myself. I feel like killing myself, right? So what would you do in that situation? And this is what we were taught, and this is what we pitched the firehouses on. If you have someone who's expressing ideations of suicide, this first question, you got to ask two specific questions. The first question that you're going to ask them, 9 out of 10 people say, I'm not asking that question, because then I'll be the one to make them, you know, could succeed in there. So the first question you got to ask, you got to look them square in the eyes. You got to say, listen, are you thinking about suicide? Are you thinking about killing yourself? Saying those words exactly. And you got to wait for their response. If you would get off, don't be ridiculous. I'm just going through a bad time. What I would do and what we would tell the guys, well, hey, here's a card from the counseling unit. The guys were here yesterday. I'll take a ride with you. Let's go talk to them. You know, so that's if you get a no. If you ask that person and they say, yeah, damn straight, I'm thinking about hurting myself. My wife left with the pool boy. I'm all by myself. Nobody cares about me. Yeah. So now you got a yes. The next question you have to ask is, do you have a plan? And if you get a yes to that, statistically, 75% of males will succeed in the act.
Wow.
Women attempt suicide twice as much as men do, but what do? They take a handful of pills and call 10 girlfriends, and help is on the way. So if you got a guy in front of you, you got to try at all means to keep him within your sight. If you can't, you know, if he's going to run out of the firehouse, then our strong suggestion would be, if someone's at home on the phone telling you, yeah, I'm going to kill myself, I got a plan, we suggest sending the cops over there, because I would rather be wrong and know that guy's alive instead of on the phone I'm going, yeah, don't forget, when you get done killing yourself, you're working for me Friday night, all right? And hang up the phone and ha, 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 ha. And a couple of days later, you know, we haven't heard from Joe. Where is he? Oh, let's go over there and check on him. And unfortunately, that happens. You know. I also go ahead.
No, again, it just sparked something in my head. After 9/11, I don't remember how long. We got a bunch of guys that came to the squad. Maybe a few months. Maybe December of that year, 2001, January of 2002, and we got a bunch of guys, and Gary Celentani was one of those guys. And you know, he had such a big heart, right? Big guy, but had such a big heart. You could tell like he really cared, and he didn't even know these guys. And he was always, it seemed to me, even then, when I think about it, he was always interested in all that stuff. And again, I'd be lying. I don't remember how long he was there, but he ended up taking his life. I mean, I think he had some personal issues other than the firehouse, but I'm sure that didn't add to it. And as it turned out, when I got promoted in June of 2002, only 6 months later, after they first came there, I ended up going to 290. And don't you know, his brother was the captain of 290, and I worked with him there. And you know, it was just such a strange set of circumstances to know him, and then to see his brother and work with his brother. And it was just but I just thought about that because I never even really thought about it. Everybody was going through some crazy stuff. It was just
absolutely. just to follow up, and this, how I became, I think, really connected to Frank. My first month in the peer counseling unit, I dealt with a suicide, and it was a guy who drove me when I was covering. And we were talking about this the other night, and I know Frank remembers this very vividly as I do. 7 days in a week, I spoke to this guy anywhere from 4 to 6 times a week for a month straight. And in the end, he took his own life. And my biggest fear after that happened, because of course, if before you do anything, please call me. I promise you, I'll call you. I'll call you. I'll call you. Well, I got the phone call on a Saturday morning that he ended his life, and I'm telling you, for 2 weeks, you know what went through my mind? Can you imagine if this guy called me and I missed that phone call? That drove me up a wall. I was in fear of that, and thank God it didn't happen. But I mean, my first month out of the box, man, I'm on the phone pretty much every time I talk to this fella. I talked to Frank because he was only talking to us two, and this guy knew whenever he went to a hospital, he had a college education. He was a smart guy, and he knew exactly what to tell the doctors to not get put into the hospital. And you know, the sad thing is that we can't save everybody. It's physically impossible. And if someone has that in their mind, no matter what we say or do, they'll find a way. You know, and that's sad. It's a permanent solution to a temporary problem.
Exactly.
You know, but for that person in that moment, that culmination of whatever they've been suppressing, it's getting to a point where they see that as their only way out. Can you imagine that? Being faced with that? You know? And when you hear the words, a permanent solution to a temporary problem, for us that are not in distress, it makes perfect sense. But to someone who's struggling, they ain't even want to hear that, probably, you know? It's a sad set of facts.
You know what I wanted to ask you now that Ron brings that up? How, and Nancy too, you could chime in on this too. How many people do you think over the years that you've had come to that point that because we were that, you know, you guys were there, that you were able to right the ship?
I mean, it's hard to say, Lou, how many we prevented. I would think that many that we prevented. It's also hard to say, do firefighters kill themselves more than the general public? I don't think there's any data that shows that they do or they don't. But one is way too many. And when it's close, it hurts like hell. And we've had many that were really, really close. You know, many people that we were talking to regularly, and they killed themselves. And it hurts. And one thing that you do learn when you do this work is that some people, you're going to lose some people, and you can't take it personally, as hard as that is. And, you know, I've had those nights myself, Ron, where I cried myself to sleep. But you know, that's part of the work. We're going to save most, and we're going to get people on the right path, but some we're not. And, you know, the ones that we don't, either through, you know, substance abuse or suicide, it has nothing to do with their intelligence or anything like that. You know, we love them like we loved anybody else, and it just didn't work, and we have to accept it. And I know Nancy's had that experience. We've had conversations ourselves, Nancy and I, about people that were struggling.
Yeah, I mean, since last June, I got 4 phone calls on my cell. The office got 1 call. All of them were suicidal. 2 of them had weapons when they called me. Mm-hmm. And it's devastating. So on a personal note, my grandfather took his life. So for me, Ron, I'm very happy you brought this up, because this is one of my things. I don't walk away from Friends of Firefighters because I think we make a difference. I know CSU makes a difference also. I don't want anybody to get caught, you know, in the cracks. I don't want anybody to say, well, that didn't work for me, but I have no other option. And this is why I keep driving it, even though I'm getting old and I'm getting tired. I keep driving it because the most important thing is that they have options. What if I didn't pick up the phone? I hear you on that. I mean, I picked up the phone and the guy said, I have a gun in my hand. I'm going to kill myself. And it's just devastating. So part of my brain is saying, I got to call CSU because, if they're active, they're getting called. And I'm telling the guy, I have to call CSU and bring them into this. If they're not active, it's still very important that I get help with this. Because as I said, I'm not a trained clinician, but we have excellent clinicians. So they also guide me. We also have a relationship with Columbia. So all 5 were put in Columbia. They did go into a program. 4 of them I'm in touch with. 1 now volunteers with us at Friends of Firefighters. They're doing well. The 5th one's brother is taking care of him, and I don't have as much of a feedback there. But it is one of the most devastating calls, because you cannot think of anything but getting this person into a safe place, and then you want them to get the help that they need, which is way out of our, this is not something that I can do. I know that, but it's very important to me because my grandfather's death, I didn't know him, but it impacted generations. So I know that that's in fact the case, and it's not just family members. A friend that does this, it impacts generations. What if I had answered his call? You talk about Gary Chalatani, and everybody was second guessing when they saw him last in the kitchen. If I had just said something, because I think there were a couple of personal things that were going on.
That. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And he was not in counseling with us. I just knew him as a nice guy at Hazmat and Squad. And my last email from him is, I'm in Disney World, and when I get back, I want to volunteer. Let me know what you need. And that, I think, was the last thing he said to a lot of people. What do you need? And that was what he was doing. But I never picked up anything. And the guys that were there, they have to second guess, and they still think about it now. And it's many years later, almost 20. And
That's right.
That is my main thrust here is you want everybody to live full lives. You don't want to see people crippled by the experiences they had, especially when they were doing that on behalf of the safety of others. So you want them to have the help for themselves. But the suicide thing is an overarching poison in a way. What you want to do is you want to get in there before that becomes part of the possible solutions. But what a lot of people don't know around the country is that in New York City, we have a funeral for a firefighter almost weekly, related to 9/11 cancer, usually. And every single one is a trigger for a number of members who are at yet another funeral. It's essential that they attend, but they sometimes attend at their own risk. And because they don't go away and say, you know what, this might be a little much. This reminds me of Billy's funeral. This reminds me of Jimmy's funeral. This reminds me, Hazmat Squad lost 19 men, and they're still going to the funerals for the other guys, of course, and that's the right thing to do, but at what price? So the idea of getting help for themselves, because it does have a cumulative effect. How many can you go to? Frank, you've been to hundreds. Everybody here has been to hundreds of funerals, and unfortunately, a lot of them were your friends, family, whatever. There's help out there, and that's the most important message we could get out there, is that there is help out there. But I don't think that we talk about suicide because it has this Catholic cloak over it as a sin, and people that do it, they're sinners, and that's I don't know that I know the church doesn't have the same approach as they did, when my grandfather did it, and they would not say a mass, and he wasn't allowed to be buried in a Catholic cemetery. But at this point, I think that they have evolved to the point where they will do a mass, and there is some understanding around it. But is there help for the survivors, the ones left behind? And is there a roadblock that we can put in there that would kind of take it off the table as an option? Yeah, you're not going to get everybody, but if we could work together, maybe we could catch more than we would have otherwise. So that's why I value my relationship so much.
Go ahead, Mikey.
I was just going to say, the way I handle it with the line of duty deaths and stuff, sometimes I just get a point where I actually got to push myself away from the environment and not go to any wakes and funerals. I didn't go to the memorial mass this last Monday, and I've been going forever at Rescue 4. I needed a chance to push away, take a deep breath, and I just want people to know that it's nothing wrong with saying I can't go. There really isn't. No one's going to fault you for not showing up, because you know what? There's 20, 30 guys there who are there, and next year one of them won't be there, and you may be there. So there's no reason to feel that you're letting yourself down or your fire company down by actually pushing away from the table occasionally and saying, I got to take a breather.
I think with that explanation, Mike, you need to give an explanation, because the peer pressure in a firehouse for not showing up is tremendous. So as retirees, we can make those decisions.
Yes, I can. You're right, Frank.
But you're not showing up for, a memorial or
my God.
That may be the end of your career.
Yeah, you better be amputated or something like that.
And like Nancy said, you do it at your own peril.
Right.
But you gotta weigh it.
But you know what? Can I just say something, Frank? I'm not disagreeing with you, because you are right. But I know from guys that I go to 9/11 at Rescue 4, some of them don't come to Rescue 4; they go elsewhere.
Right.
So I'm just saying, there's a lot of layers to the onion. Everyone has to grieve their own way. There are some that never show.
Right.
And I even say, how can you not show? But unfortunately, some people, it's beyond their comprehension, or they have reached their limit, where the grief is so much that the only way they can survive is by not getting involved. Now, I don't agree with that. I think you got to get involved. And that's the only way you're going to save yourself is by talking, getting help, and reaching out and being involved with I'm so lucky that I can go back to Rescue 4 and they actually know who I am 20 years later. Now, I don't know if it's because of my baggage, but at least I feel a little warmth and comfort knowing I can go into that kitchen and I don't have to go for a cup of coffee like they're looking at me like, who's this guy? They actually know me. So that's a comforting situation for me. So that's what helps me get through it as well. But I do get your point, Frank. I'm just.
No, I understand what you're saying. It's just.
No, you make a lot of sense.
Right.
I have a different perspective because I've been around away from it for 20 some odd years. So I'm a little more mellow about it. I forgive when people don't show. When I was on the job, I did the same thing you would do. You vilified the guy. Where weren't you there? Now I look at it a little bit different, maybe because of the stress and PTSD that I deal with on a regular basis. I've become more loving or understanding, if that's possible, from a guy like me, where you
not
say,
possible.
I can understand that. I don't mean to get off this topic, but besides the suicides and the hard drinking, as I said earlier, it can affect people's careers. I know one guy had two from Rescue 4. He left because of that. He had two mutuals, one for Father's Day and one for 9/11, and it really drove him crazy.
Mike, who the first people that came to the counseling unit after 9/11 were the people that were on vacation on 9/11.
Oh, wow.
So the people this was the big one. This was the big one. And if you weren't there because you were stuck out of town, it ate you alive. So those were the first people that came in. They were devastated because of how they would be perceived, and that they, eventually others came in. But the first people that came in were not the people that were there, the people that weren't there.
Well, Frank, right now, after all the stuff I've been through, gee, I wish I wasn't there. To be quite honest,
I think you'd feel better now. But at that point,
that's 2 months, 2 minutes after, as opposed to 22 years.
Right. Very interesting.
Hey, Coobs.
Hey,
what's up, buddy?
Hey,
what's going on, pal? How are you?
I had to bundle up and go outside.
Are you outside?
You on the roof?
I like to wear a hoodie.
Are you Yoda?
Put the heat on in my house. What?
Yoda.
Yeah. Well.
So you want to fill me in what I missed, real quick? No.
Everything.
Watch the tape.
There's something that Ron said that I think is something that Ron said that is important. He mentioned asking somebody on the topic of suicide. If you ask somebody if they're thinking of killing themselves, and just like Ron said, it's just not if they're thinking of hurting yourself or you're not thinking of killing yourself, not like that. If you're thinking of killing yourself and they were thinking of killing themselves, you've cut their risk by 50%. There's 50% chance less that they're going to kill themselves just by you asking. So don't ever hesitate to ask that question if it's in your gut. That's a possibility.
But be prepared to act if they say yes.
I'm glad that we came back to it, because part of our training for the suicide awareness campaign, first of all, those people that are ideations of suicide, they're putting little feelers out there that we don't even realize. So the things are, if someone is always on time for work, is now showing up late. Always neat and clean, now disheveled. Never drinks, is now drinking. Always drinks, stop drinking. Anything that is a polar opposite of that person, those are all signs to us that are in that room. And who do we know? We know, like we said, the Firehouse Life, the guys in my groups, I know their moves, I know their tics, I know everything about them. So when they start acting in a manner other than, it's time to raise an eyebrow and keep an eye, and especially, I'm going to know if my 24 partner's wife is walking out on him, right? And he's starting to act a little quirky. So, they're even unbeknownst to them, they're putting signs out there. So for everybody that's listening, and this doesn't only have to be in the firehouse. It could be your next door neighbor. It could be your aunt. It could be your cousin, whoever it is. If they're acting,
that's not only with suicide, Ron. That's not only with suicide. That's with any mental health issue, right? And we're talking about suicide, which is, the high level risk, but depression or PTSD or anxiety or marital issues, substance abuse, any of those things that if we can cut off a little earlier, and get them support just a little bit earlier.
That's the key, though, right, Frank?
A lot.
The earlier the intervention, obviously the better it is, right? The faster you get people to talk, and as opposed to taking it all by themselves or whatever,
Right.
Yeah. And one thing could lead to another, right? I mean, some of these mental health issues could lead to drinking, could lead to divorce. So in that respect, if you can get it early, maybe you save this guy a divorce. Maybe you save him from hitting the bottle and stuff like that. And like I said before, I don't know how much I was, I got on, but it's up to the guys. Not only do we want to get the information out to the guys who need help, we want to get to the information to the guys around them to identify these things and to keep their eyes open, and to maybe pull the guy to the side if he's uncomfortable talking at the kitchen table. Hey, you okay? Hey, are you okay?
Exactly right. And Kevin, the other thing that they're starting to realize at this point, and that they didn't understand before, is that these mental health issues that we're experiencing, like substance abuse, depression, sleep disturbance, which is a huge thing in the fire service, it's not only contributing to your mental health, but your physical health. So we always thought that cancer rates were high because of exposure, and that's true. But cancer rates are also high because we drink too much, because we're not sleeping enough, because we have depression. And the same thing with heart disease. So it's a perfect storm. Not only is exposure the issue, but the mental health issues is what's leading to a lot of these issues. So what Pete mentioned before about education is, like, how fair is it that we're not educating people that this is what's going to happen in their lives? If you go around the country and ask, are you allowed to be on an antidepressant in your department and be full duty? A simple question that should have a simple answer. You get a lot of dead stares. They have no idea what the answer is.
Right. I don't
now,
know the answer.
There's somebody walking out with a prescription, some young man or woman from a doctor with a prescription for an antidepressant because they're chronically and clinically depressed right now and has no idea if they can take it or not and be full duty. And that person may kill themselves because of it. Wow. And we don't know the answer to that question. And that's a crime. And the answer is yes, you can take it 99% of the time. And, just giving that information out can save lives. And we're not doing that. And, in New York, firefighters know, as a matter of fact, one of the psychiatrists said, they should put it in the drinking water at every firehouse, an antidepressant.
Wasn't that Malachi, Frank?
No, that was Kevin Kelly. He said,
Kevin Kelly. Oh, okay.
So he said they should put it in, but in other departments, they don't know the answer, and that can lead to serious issues. So just simple education around simple things like that can be helpful.
Go ahead, Mikey. You had you see you jumping
Well,
around.
I was going to add something earlier about CSU and it being getting an early intervention. In my case, I didn't, and then it wasn't a bad thing. But my wife at the time called the cops, and my sons were, I think, 3 and 4, and then she felt bad about that. The cops interviewed my sons separately, and then realized I wasn't going to get arrested. But unbeknownst to her, CPS gets involved, Child Protective Services. So that adds another layer of turmoil and trauma for the person like myself or others who are trying to get help. So, I got to say, if you can reach out to CSU or Nancy early before you get called, the cops come over or CPS shows up or your kids are being, interrogated by a bunch of guys in blue, that'd be a home run because it added a little more of a layer of problems to me by having this happen. She felt guilty, so I had that on my hands now. My kids were traumatized by it, and nothing happened to me directly, but the baggage of my wife being upset, feeling guilty, and my children being interrogated by 2 strangers with badges, it wasn't the right thing to happen. So again, if you guys out there can find someone to help you prior to what I just discussed, you're saving yourself and your wife and kids a lot of problems.
Hey, Cap, somebody in the chat's asking, are there similar, I'm assuming yes, but I just asked, are there similar programs in place for EMS?
So in New York City, absolutely. And, New York EMS and fire are the same, but around the country, it's more of a question mark. Like fire service around the country, the programs are minimal. In New York City, it's just like everybody else, but the programs are minimal. And what EMS doesn't have is the kitchen table. So you have a partner, and sometimes that partner is terrific, but sometimes they're not. Right. And the same thing with law enforcement. We're going off on a tangent here, but with law enforcement, they don't have the kitchen table as well, and they also have a weapon that they're concerned about and concerned about losing. So a depression diagnosis would be difficult for them, and so they're more reluctant. So the programs are really minimal for EMS and fire around the country, and law enforcement as well.
I want to throw something out there to you guys, and you guys can each chime in on what you think. But we talk about early intervention. What about, over the years going through therapy myself, I realized I had 2 failed marriages before that. So identifying some of the things and the personality characteristics and traits of a firefighter, which could possibly lead to trouble in your life. Example being, Ron Zoni said it before, we are the consummate, I can save this, I can save anything, I can fix anything. So you get into a relationship and you don't realize how dysfunctional your partner may or may not be, and you think that you can fix it, and it winds up being a mess. So, that's one of the things that happened to me. Identifying the type of personality that firefighters are and understanding what that is and navigate through your life. It can be a positive thing too. Firefighters are ingenious. If you harness that personality and take it outside the fire department and start your own business or you do whatever, but also recognizing the downfalls of being a person who always has to save somebody.
Kevin, I got to jump in because what you said to me is that's incredible, because what we've recognized in a lot of firefighters that they are trying to fix their spouse, and sometimes their spouse doesn't need fixing. And other times, sometimes that they really are pick a spouse to fix. And I used to do a lot of the notification of line of duty deaths on the job before 9/11. So I would go with the union and the chief to the house to notify the spouse of the death. It was awful, of course. But what what I recognized was when you pulled a firefighter out of that family, it collapsed because they were holding the family up. They were holding the spouse up. They were holding the kids up. They were holding the neighborhood up practically.
Right.
And because they were the fix-it guys. And when you pulled it out, the family collapsed. You made such a point that I kind of forgot about when I made those visits, seeing some of the situations. But yeah, I mean, understanding who we are and that we can't fix people. People need to fix themselves would be helpful.
Yeah.
It's funny you say that because every time my daughters or my wife, it's always, let's ask dad first, right? And I always say all the time, this is my favorite line, because deep down in places you don't like to talk about in parties, you want me on that wall. You need me on that wall. So, for all the craziness that I give you, in the end, you want the guy on the wall. You know what I mean? So, I mean, we're all like that. Like you said, it's just that our personality. And it is funny that, it was a little chuckle there when you said that sometimes it's not the spouse that needs fixing. You know what I mean? I'm sure that's about 99.5% of the time. Holy mackerel, that's great.
So instead of using that and focusing it on trying to fix your wife or somebody else, your kids, focus on something constructive. Focus it on your health, your physical health, work out. Focus it on a business. Focus it on something outside the box. If you can learn to harness that and put it in a different direction, I think you'd be better off served being a firefighter.
Well, yeah. I know there's plenty of guys out there that are doing side gigs and they're very ingenious and driven and stuff like that. So, I think as a whole, our community, that that's happening, But to Frank's point about, and we all got a chuckle out of it. We're trying to fix somebody. Meanwhile, this is the guy that needs to be fixed more than anybody else. But because of my bravado and my mindset, I'm going to tell you that you're wrong, and I'm going to fix you. Right?
Can't be
it
me.
Doesn't. Yeah, of course. That's the hardest thing for any of us.
Right.
To wave that flag and admit defeat. I need help. Help me. It's so hard to do, but once you do it, it's a relief. And then anytime something comes your way where you're a little muddy on it or you just don't know how to go about it, it's so easy to pick up that phone and say, hey, this is what's going on. And, it's just a matter of having the bravado to ask for that first step. Taking that first step is what's needed,
I'm going to throw one more at you because I've been through 2 divorces myself. A lot of guys would come to me to talk about problems they're having in their marriage. And I would always, always, always send them in the direction of counseling. But talking to these guys, going myself, I've gone to marriage counseling myself. If you're going to go, because I've seen it, I've done it myself. I've heard other guys tell me about their sessions, about kind of what happened. If you're going to go, take the time to go. Don't go there to try to convince the counselor that you're right and she's wrong. Go there with the knowledge that I'm going to fix whatever it is that I'm bringing, whatever my baggage is. I'm going to go there to fix that, and hopefully my partner's going to go there to fix hers. Because 9 out of 10 times, I'm listening to guys, and they're telling me, "Yeah, well, I told the counselor that she does this, and this." And you're trying to almost, woo the counselor to be on your side, so she sees it as you see it, and there's nothing wrong with you. There's something wrong with her. So if you're going with that attitude, you'll be better served if you're going there just to fix yourself.
That's a defense mechanism. Sorry,
yeah. No. You know what it is, Coops? I want to add to that point. I've discovered something in recent years that trauma and PTSD are not just for first responders. It could happen to anybody, but also, in order to deal with these things, I think what we're talking about is vulnerability, and how can a first responder open themselves up to vulnerability when they're not in the line of business of being vulnerable. They're helping people who are vulnerable to fire. They're helping people who are vulnerable to cardiac arrest. They're people who are being shot at and killed. And I know that what Kevin was just saying is when you go to a therapy session with someone that you care about like that, don't convince the therapist that you're right and she's wrong, or they're right and they're wrong, or whatever. But it's also vulnerability. You have to go in saying, I don't give a, pardon my language, I don't give a fuck. I'm going to let it all hang out, the good, the bad, and the ugly. How do you guys feel about changing that culture? How do we get to a point where we can open ourselves and be more vulnerable in order to say the things that need to be said?
Can I say something as the only woman here?
Sure.
It's not just men that go into the counseling with their spouse and try to convince the counselor that he did this, she did this, she did that. Women do that too. I think couples go into the room and they want the counselor to hear their side because for whatever reason they don't feel heard. And it's easier to say what a bastard he is or what a bitch she is than to actually sit down and hear the other person. And a good counselor will not only see it coming, but head it off at the pass and say, you know what? Let's work on you. And that's really what the focus of each person should be, is getting themselves healthy, because you'd be surprised how healthy other people look once you're healthy, right? Whether they go for help or not.
Well,
you start to see them through a different lens.
My wife doesn't look so bad now.
So that's my 2 cents.
Mrs. Procaccini's husband in the chat said, you got to feel uncomfortable to get comfortable with yourself. And I will say
Good
this,
statement.
and Mikey McVeigh will attest to this. Richie Sclafani used to say all the time, unfortunately passed away on a line of duty death. He used to say in the firehouse all the time, no matter where you go, there you are. All the time.
Yeah.
You cannot hide from yourself. He used to say that all the time. And I used to love that because it was so honest, right? And if you really think about it, it's just a perfect thing. You can't hide from yourself, man. You're there. You could play games and make yourself out to be something you're not, but in the end.
And Louis, that's a great point, man, because you're not just a firefighter, not me. You guys are not just firefighters. You're human beings, and there's a whole host of other issues before you even got to the point where you swore in. There's generational issues. There could be alcoholism before you even got on the job. Forget about when you got on the job. So you're bringing your humanity to the job, and you can't separate yourself from your humanity, because wherever you go, there you are.
I thought that was a great line.
It is a great line.
Right. Who else wants to throw something out before I jump on another one?
Well, I'll just add this, sort of to Nancy's point and Frank's. Thank God I had a good ex-wife, wife at the time. She got me the help I needed. But I must say, and I want everyone to understand this, it may take you 4 or 5 different therapists to see before you find the one, like Nancy says, that I had Steve. He said, Mike, you're full of yourself. Shut up and listen. and I think that's what therapists have to do sometimes, especially the firefighters, because, you're right. You try to control the environment, and you really want to be vulnerable and open. And you want to grab the prize, because if you don't go to grab the prize, you're never going to get better. So it took me a while, because I used to walk in with my wife, and I walk in with what I thought was one problem, and I walk out with 2 suitcases of problems. Until I found the right guy, Steve. I won't use his last name. And I finally got comfortable. And that's another, I think, a good thing too. You want to feel comfortable with that person that's going to talk to you, because they're going to peel the onion and dive in there. And with their experience, they're going to know whether you're full of shit or you're honest or
Mike.
You really care.
That's good,
So
Mike. I like that.
just want everyone to understand that.
I used to tell people all the time, Mike, it might take you 2, 3, 4 people till you find somebody you click with. You got to click with them. Yep. My wife used to tell me all the time that everybody's got baggage. I don't care who you are. Because if you ain't got no baggage, you ain't never been nowhere in life, my friend. So,
and that's baggage in and of itself, right? Not having done anything or been anywhere. And that's not any of you. You've been everywhere. You've seen, I would say, arguably too much. You've seen too much. You've seen things that are horrific, and they don't just go away because you want to will them away. But it's a hard thing to fold into your life, and yeah, it has to be processed. Pete, you mentioned shout out to the guys in Dearborn, Michigan. So I think they deserve a shout out.
Yeah, absolutely. Shout out to the Dearborn guys who gave us
Mike
Madden and his crew of peers. They're all watching, along with the brothers and sisters everywhere. Yeah. This is a subject that's not easily discussed, but it's something that has to be talked about, because just awareness on it. The things that hopefully, I know people are picking stuff up by what we're sending out. So this is definitely something that's needed. I'm
traumatized right now looking at Milner.
Yeah.
Nancy, can I set up an appointment?
You got my number, right?
I don't.
but can I just say this too? When I was out with Ronnie and Frank the other night, we were talking. I'm telling them about all my traumatic experiences, and as we're talking, which to me is the whole point of what I'm about to say, you want to talk it out. Because when I was sitting at the diner with Ron and Frank, I started to talk about things that were deep in my brain that until Frank and Ron started talking, we had a little commonality, I brought it out. I mean, there were so many little things that added up to all the other big things that happened in my career that they came out to the front of my brain, and I actually had a chance to talk about it for the first time in a long, long time. And if I may, two things come to my mind that are really tiny things compared to what I went through that really probably added to my disability. One was, in I guess the late 80s, EMS was on a work slowdown. So we had a fire somewhere in Queens, Rescue 4. And the chief asked us, because we had the seat in the back of the rig, was the old R model with the doors in the rear. Would we mind taking this dead child, maybe 2 years of age, to the morgue? And since we didn't have any body bags or a trundle, we put her on a shutter, a white shutter off a window, put her on the back seat, and we're bumping her along, and she's bouncing around. And that really disturbed me. And not that we had any control over. We did the right thing. We were very sincere and did our best to make sure she got to the morgue as best we could do for her. But it hurt. And another time I was at Squad 1, and this was in the late 80s with the AIDS crisis really going through the roof. And we had to pronounce the girl dead, a mother, I think, in her apartment. And what struck me was, I guess I'm trying to visually not look at her. She was all skin and bones. So I guess I'm scanning the room, trying to keep myself looking at something other than her, the dead person. And I just focused on a bunch of her pictures in a wedding dress with her kids. And now I saw how she was to now what she looked like today in death. So, to me, those are little things, but they add up. And I'm sure everybody here has these little snippets of trauma that adds to the path towards PTSD or something similar.
No doubt. It's all cumulative, Mike. You just reminded me, I'm working in the engine, and we get a call 2 days before Christmas for a cardiac arrest. And we're in Queens. We're over the border in Queens. And we walk in the house. The tree is up. There's gifts all under the tree. And this guy's in the back bedroom. We throw him on the floor. We do CPR on him. And you walk out of there, and you're thinking about what's in store for this family over the next couple of days. That's just one run that took 20 minutes, and there's a million of them that we can just you string them along. It's a cumulative effect. And sooner or later, it comes to a head. And, that we're so lucky for what we have, because as we said, most of the country doesn't even have this. The NYPD doesn't even have as much as we have. I got a fellow that I'm trying to help out now. I was on the phone with him today for about 20 minutes. And I said, well, did you call your union? Did you call it? And everything was a dead end. You know, a retired guy like me or anybody else, you got something bugging you, you call up CSU, they're going to get you in with somebody and they're going to take care of you, you know? And that's a big plus, you know? It's amazing that what we have that people don't.
And I think what Mike said is Mike, what you said, I think it hits it right, the nail right on the head, is what the kind of baggage that we have. But I don't want us to forget how strong and resilient we are as well. You know, you're looking at men and women around the country and in New York that are incredibly resilient, and that bounce back in every time you bounce back, Mike and Ron, and we all bounce back from situations like that. But we just, mental health support just gives them a little boost. 99% of the people can't do what we do as far as first responders. They choose not to do this work. And we should have programs in place for people, for first responders that have these experiences. I mean, it's plain and simple, and it has to happen. And we've talked about it on the show. It doesn't happen in most places around the country.
So if they wanted to, where would be a good starting place for small departments to get something like this going?
The places, if you have 15 people in your department, find local resources. What are the local resources that you have? Do you have a rehab that's local? Do you have an emergency room that you can go to the back door and see a psychiatrist? Do you have a local counselor that you can interview and he or she gets it? And then, start there, start small. You don't need a lot of money. Just, build some resources in your community. And if you have a champion, somebody in your department that takes the bull by the horns, then you're really in great shape. Now you can talk to the chief. You can talk, because people understand this now. It's not, a decade ago or 30 years ago. Yeah. Say, I'm interested in this. I want to make a 30-minute presentation to give to the job about the hazards, the mental health hazards of the fire service. And the chief will say yes, and you build a program around that. So start small, work your way up.
Watch the podcast, for God's sakes.
Watch Get Salty.
You know what? Can I just add another resource back to this? Would be your local school district. I've told a few people that have called me. I said, go to the local school district.
Good idea.
Right.
They may be more open about it because you have kids in the district.
Right.
So
anytime that I've gone anywhere, Mike, if there's, going down to the Gulf Coast after a disaster or hurricane or the first thing I do is call a local university and say, what do you have? What kind of resources do you have? After the Las Vegas shooting, call the local university. What kind of resources do you have? And are you willing to help the emergency responders? The answer is always yes. You got to make the call, though. You're right. You got to make the call.
Wow, that's good advice.
If I might add, which is fantastic advice, I never thought of that, but we can, maybe if we do another show down the road or whatever, whoever you have on, but maybe a guy to pick his brain on is that guy Mike Madden. They started from scratch. Mm-hmm. I had spoken to Mike at length a few times about what we did as peers. And I mean, he would probably be able to tell you what it's like to start up a counseling unit. The FDNY went down to the Charleston Fire Department after they lost the 9 guys in that warehouse fire. 2 guys lived there for 6 months and started a counseling services program from the Charleston Fire Department. I've had the pleasure of going to Boston after the marathon bombing. We spent 3 nights in Boston. We pitched every firehouse. We caught every group, every tour. We went with state officials, a priest. We had a clergy member. We had someone from their state mental health or whatever, and we did most of the talking, and I did that there, and I also did it in New Jersey with 3 other guys after they had a fatal fire where they lost 9 kids at like 9:30 in the morning. I think it was Union, New Jersey. We went there, 4 peers from the FDNY. We pitched all the firehouses, and we had a lunch afterwards. So, and Frank could even go further deeper into the places that he's been, both nationally and internationally. This program is sought after by all the major places, because they see what we do, they see the results, and I think that guy Mike would definitely be a guy to talk to about a startup venture in CSU. I think he's got some answers over there.
The time to build a program is now, not after you have a disaster. And that, it's like building an emergency room after you've had a multi-casualty event. It doesn't work then, or you're going to build it improperly. So, start small now, because what we've seen is, within the next couple of months, FDNY will get a call and they'll go to a department that has absolutely no program, that has this terrible trauma on their hands, a line of duty death or a mass shooting or an earthquake or whatever the heck, and there'd be nothing in place. And we can do a little, but we're not the experts of the people of that department, and they have to get on the ball right now.
I didn't know that we were doing that, Cap. I mean, we didn't know that we were doing that. That's good. Yeah. I'm glad that we do that.
When we went to Boston a year later, they invited 3 of us back to their Medal Day ceremony, and they gave out. We had 13 peer counselors that went. Each member of the Boston Fire Department that was working and at that bombing, they came up with a special ribbon, like our 9/11 ribbon. Right. And they presented them to us 3 on behalf of the 13 guys. I wear that on my uniform.
That's great.
Yeah,
that's cool, right?
Yeah.
And this, Pete, you'd be interested in this. So when we were working with Boston, everybody in Boston was almost every firefighter was a military, right? So in the military, when there was a improvised device, you were told to package the victim and get out of there as soon as possible. In Boston Fire, they were taught to treat at the scene. So here you have all these young firefighters that were doing the opposite of their training.
Right.
And there was a secondary device. And I worked with Boston for a couple of years after that, working with their counseling program on how to support these guys, because they didn't, they were debating at the scene of what they should do. So if we're going to bring military people on, we should also, train them in an appropriate way.
Get everybody on the same page.
Yeah, not to contradict their training.
Yeah. Hey, can I just ask you something, Frank? I don't know how far this got off the ground, but when we started getting an influx of military guys, especially combat veterans that are now within the ranks of the New York City Fire Department, I know Frank had brought this up, and I just don't know where it went to, but we have a unique set of circumstances now that none of us, I can't speak to a combat veteran and I can try to help them, but we're kind of in the dark. We got these guys that are coming back from war, and now they're on our job, and they're seeing what they're seeing. And there comes a time when something's going to come to a head. And I know we had tried a couple of times getting that off the ground, Frank. Where do we end up going with that?
Well, I mean, what we've done before I left, and I think it's still continuing, and I'm sure it's still continuing, is we developed a database of our peer counselors. So we were able to figure out, like, why are you doing this work? Do you have a substance use problem? Did you have a kid that had leukemia? Do you have a kid that has autism? Did you have a family member that killed themselves? Or do you have combat experience? And so when we have an issue, like when we get a call and we have a new diagnosis of leukemia, we can put in our database who in our peer group has experienced leukemia.
Wow.
And that way, well, 2 or 3 people will pop up, unfortunately, and we'll be able to match that with the person that needs the support. So, we're, of course, again, a big department, and we have a lot of resources. So something that we all experience, elder care, right? Who's not dealing with a sick parent or a sick aunt or uncle? We have in our database who just experienced that in our peer counseling, who just knew where to get the hospital bed, who just went to hospice. And we were able to match those people. So the same with the question you're asking, Ron. We have people that have combat experience on the peer roles right now, and we'll try to match that up. It's not always perfect, but we do the best we can.
To close out, because we are starting to get towards 10 o'clock here. What do you guys feel like the state of mental health is in the fire service? I mean, where are we right now, and where are we going? In brief, I mean, we don't need like a full. I know that could be a mouthful right there, but where do we go from here?
Start with Nancy. What do you think, Nancy?
I think that the country as a whole, maybe the world as a whole, because of COVID, mental health is not the curse that it was perceived to be. It's not the scary place. I think a lot of people are reaching out for help now, and I think that actually includes the first responders who have been through hell, who have had. I know in New York City they were telling me that there were a few days where they had DOAs every 2 minutes for a whole day. And so I don't think that anybody is going to look askance at a firefighter or a first responder in general that's asking for help now due to the last 2 years. So I do think that's opened up the conversation. Some will still be resistant to it, but the more we talk about it, it's the same thing with suicide. The more we discuss it, bring it out in the open, demystify it, I do think that would make it more accessible to more people. I hope.
Go ahead, Cap.
I agree with Nancy. I think 9/11 and the Gulf Wars and COVID, but particularly 9/11 and the Gulf Wars, we couldn't get away from mental health issues that were affecting us. And watching and seeing on the news every night another veteran killing themselves, we had there was no way to turn away from that. And I think it became, apparent that these jobs have impacts on us. And I think there's no shame. It's actually a sign of courage for any of us to step forward and getting help. So getting help is a sign of courage. I think that's you go to firehouses now and they're arguing about who has the best therapist. So the shame is gone. If you need help, go get it, and then tell your brothers and sisters how it worked out for you. You'll be saving lives.
Yeah. Nice.
Go ahead, Ron. You got anything to add?
Yeah. One thing first. Now the FDNY has active members that are now peers too, because if there's an immediate need, they can go through the roles and get someone that's on duty and get them to where they have to be now instead of waiting for a recall of peers. But what this question that you asked, Lou, I just think about when I walked in the door back in 1988 to where we are now, and it's leaps and bounds. The counseling unit has come so far, and they've done so much, where at one point in my lifetime in this job, it was a taboo. You go to counseling unit, now it's accepted. And I think that's the direction that we all need to be moving in. And, talking about it, it's no longer the elephant in the room. It's something that is on everybody's mind. And I think it can only help.
Okay, Mike, you have anything to add to that too?
Two things. One, I kind of worry about the volleys. Not that they're not well trained and stuff, but they seem to be left out of a lot of stuff that goes on in the fire service. I would hope that, and I hope someone from the New York State Fire Chiefs is listening. Maybe it's time to have at least a mental health awareness course for anybody that wants to be an officer or a fire chief. Okay, at least it'll be a little bit of a way of, since you don't have the kitchen table, at least maybe when you have breakfast on a Sunday, you may see something that doesn't look right. You can make the advance to that person. Hey, you want to talk about something, and maybe help that man or woman find the help that they may need. And number two, I use myself as an example. It's like I'm like a prize fighter. I took the early hits. I made it through. It's round nine, and here I am. The bell's about to ring to end the 10th round, and I'm a living proof that you can survive the blows. You just got to reach out, look for the help, be open about it, and not just open about it with the psychologist or the psychiatrist. Be open about it with your family, your peers, your coworkers, and there is light at the end of the tunnel. And you know what? It works. The light comes, and you are there's salvation. I'm not a religious guy, but you can do it. I mean, it's hard. It's like if you were an alcoholic or a drug addict. This is an issue that you got to fight it every day. There's no free pass. There's no easy avenue, no easy way out. But if you put your mind to it, and of course you need the support of your wife, your kids, your workers, your clergy, it can be done. And that's why I like to talk about it. I don't have an answer, but I'm willing to listen. And you can cry on my shoulder. You can call me up tonight if you want to. I've been there, done it, and I'm still doing it, and still trying to make myself a better person.
Good for you, Mikey.
Good stuff, man. Good stuff, Mike.
I'm going to add one thing. Guys spend a lot of time in the gym. It's hard work, right? To be physically fit. Got to spend that hard work to be mentally fit as well. Same amount of time you got to put towards that, man. Same amount of time. It's not easy, It's
harder, Kevin. It's hard. The mental part of it is the hardest.
Yeah, I tell guys all the time, man. Life
you can go in front of the mirror, Kevin, like we all do. You look at your hands and
hide from yourself.
Louis, that's true. It's very easy to hide from yourself.
No, I got it.
That's what I want to make sure everyone understands.
Yep.
That's not what you want to do. Try to be open about it. Let the what's out and everything else, and let people reach out with their arms and hands to help you. They're out there. We're the people on this screen right now. We're out here to help you. We're not here to be vindictive, not to scold you, not to tell you my way's the right way, but find the niche or the avenue that makes you feel comfortable to reach that goal of being a success.
Yeah.
All right, Ruffy, what do you got? Final thoughts?
I was a little leery about this show. I mean, Coobs knows.
Really? I didn't know that. I know you so well. I know you better than my wife, probably. And I'm like,
but I have to say, you guys did an excellent job. I have to say, I'm very happy. I'm proud that we did it, and that's no shit. I don't. You guys really did a nice job.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Petey Piper.
I might go out on a limb here and say this might be my all-time favorite show. And this is going to be a term that I always use with you boys, Kevin, Lou, in the behind the scenes. I always say value added. What are our value added shows? This is a value added show. I feel like we're out here helping people. And I think that's what you guys do. You help people. And this is just another way to do it. So, I think this is an important show. I think we all have our issues, me included. I'm working through my own stuff, and I really, really appreciate you guys sharing. And if you're out there listening, we love you guys. This is a community. This is the Leatherhead Nation. We want to build this community, and we appreciate you guys. If you need the help, go get it, man. Because we need you guys. We need you guys out here, guys and gals. We need you all.
Gabe Fox says, Lou, it takes work not to be pissy.
Look how much I love you. I'm sitting out here in the freezing cold. I must love you guys.
All right. We have any?
I want to thank you guys for coming on.
Thank you guys.
Thank you.
And gals,
Thanks for having us, man.
Thanks, Nancy. Good to see you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Nancy, we'll be chatting, and Mike. And Petey Piper, do your stuff, bro.
Well, once again, guys, Nancy is with friendsofFirefighters.org. If you need some help, maybe you could start there, or with the CSU, or whatever your
donate.
Or donate, and whatever your counseling unit is locally, wherever you can find help. Hey, maybe it's talking to one of your brothers or sisters about this, and I mean people who are on the job, right? So definitely invest in yourself, invest in your community. Guys, thank you for letting us be the conduit for this tonight. I want to thank all the guests. Just hang with us for a moment here. We're going to say our goodbyes afterwards. And let me just run through it. If you're watching this show, you could also be listening to this show, as you guys all know, on any player that's out there: iTunes, Podcast, Spotify, iHeartRadio, whatever. We're on all of them. Go check that out. But if you're here on youtube.com/Getting Salty Experience, remember to like, subscribe, and share. And guys, on a show like tonight, share the show. Share the show. You never know who you can impact with something like this. You might save a life. It might be that powerful. Okay. And that's what we're hoping for. Guys, Instagram, if you're on Instagram, @SaltyDogInc is where you'll find us. GettingSaltyApparel.com, guys, is where we sell our wares. Check us out. It helps the show. Thank you to everybody in the super chat. You guys never cease to amaze me. You guys are the #1 sponsors that we have, and syndicators, of course. Facebook, guys, if you're on the Getting Salty fans page, talk about it. Bring this up. Make it a discussion. We love good chat on there. So get on the Getting Salty fans page. That's 30,000 strong. What a great community. And they're not shy about breaking our balls. So definitely, if you want to have a few laughs, check that out.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Uh-huh. And guys, Getting Salty ads @gmail.com if you'd like to advertise with us. Getting Salty Experience @gmail.com if you have a question for the show. And guys, Coobs Podcast @gmail.com if you guys have any stuff for our Cup of Joe and Fuego or Cocklofts and Cocktails news shows. That's helmet cam footage, fire photos, the rigs, the mustaches and tattoos and tables and all that good stuff. Definitely hit us up there. And that, my friends, is all the news that's fit to print.
Amazing job, guys. Once again, appreciate each and every one of you.
Yes,
thank
you so much,
and
guys.
I apologize for my lazy internet. Hopefully, I'll get that fixed real soon, and we won't have this issue again, right, Pete? Verizon, 2 gigs.
1 gig, 2 gigs, whatever it takes.
220, 221, whatever it takes.
Whatever it takes.
17 slides into 16. I don't know. Whatever.
It's the 19 slide on the 17 frame. It's the G45.
Okay.
Yeah.
Excellent. Great job. Once again, thanks so much, Ricky.
Thank you. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Yep. All right,
Just
guys.
hang out. We'll say our
Thank you,
goodbyes
everybody.
after we sign off, guys. Stand by.
All right, guys. Stay low and go.
All right, everybody. We'll see you at the big one.
Cheers, everybody.